Professor Andrew Spencer. So the first question for you, Professor Spencer, how can academic institutions help the shipping industry move from corporate social responsibility commitments to measurable impact?
Right, testing 1, 2, am I being heard? All right, great. All right, so thank you, Lady Tamara. And I find it so interesting that, here I can't decide what to eat. My good friend here has cycled all across Norway. Our other good friend has had good beer at a rapid rate. I run all the time. And nobody told us anything about Tamara. She should tell us something unique about herself, right? I think that would be fair.
I'm a poet. I make magic with words.
All right. So back to your question. I'm happy to be here. Thanks to the CSA for inviting me. And I often say that this idea of CSR is something that we need to help to evolve, right? So you know that when companies engage in investment activities, there's something called ESG, and it's measurable, and it's external, and somebody sees it as a part of what needs to happen in order for a project, program, or something else to succeed. I think we ought to think about our giving and our protecting of the environment, social space, and everything else around us as a critical part of how we exist. You ask me how universities can help to do that? Well, we will do more of what we've always been doing. So at the Caribbean Maritime University, we are very focused on a number of things. And we're clear that CSR can't just be about commitment, it has to be action, and that action has to be measurable. So we have done a few things in the last few years, which I think you'll find exciting. And Tamara has been clear. She's given me a very specific time, so I'm sticking to it. In the last few years, the Caribbean Maritime University has recognized a number of things that we cannot simply exist because we need to exist. And that's typically how companies are. We need to do what we must so we can exist a little bit longer. And there's no thought about that which is bigger than us in all of this. So we've been very clear. One of the things we've engaged in, and I think you'll find it very interesting, is that we now have, and I see my good friend from Haiti, we have 10 individuals in Jamaica from Haiti who are being trained as marine pilots. And again, this is a key partnership, something that we've engaged in, not for any major profit. We've also recently trained fisher folk in all 14 parishes in Jamaica. Fisher folk who, by the way, cannot swim. You would be surprised to believe that most of the fishermen and women in Jamaica can't swim. We've trained them, and we've also given them basic safety gear so that when they go out to their families, there's a greater likelihood that they will return. We've also engaged in a partnership with Martinique, which will see 10 students coming to us in June for training and for exposure to our high-end, to our high-end facilities. And so we're talking about this in 3 basic pillars. So we're exposing them to the technology that we have, which we think is the best technology in the Caribbean at the Caribbean Maritime University. And those students will then go back to Martinique better equipped to be able to treat with AI, but also they will create a pipeline for individuals who understand what ought to happen in and around the space. The other thing that we'd like to say is we're preparing for a logistics wave.
When we look at the maritime industry, we know the areas where help is needed. From a CSR perspective, how involved do you get in helping the industry to chart a way forward?
Well, the truth about what we do is that we live it, right? And because we live it, we're able to teach it, and because we live it, we're able to craft it, we're able to write it, we're able to document it. And we do a lot of work in terms of not just advocacy, but consultancy and guidance. So the reality is that we have the blueprint, and we've had experience in guiding actually companies in terms of how they are able to start, I don't want to say putting their money where their mouth is. It's a little corny. But that's what it is, right? It's about aligning resources to that which matters. That sounds better. And so we're ready. I mean, the conversation. So literally, you shouldn't have given me the microphone again, Tamara, because I'm now going to say that apart from the CSA, ACMF, and everybody else who is contributing and helping, I don't think that anybody at all in this room who has not yet started to support education for the sake of environmental sustainability, education for the sake of social responsibility, education for the sake of digital inclusion, education for the sake of gender equity, should leave here today, and I think Merla agrees with me, without committing at some point, even if it's at the reception later on.
Which is why I asked the question,
Yes,
how
thank
do you
you.
help them realize? Some of them don't even realize that they need,
Yes.
that part of it. Policy frameworks and industry practices in the Caribbean.
Yeah, excellent question. And I think there are a couple of ways we can look at it. It can be an outward-looking approach or an inward-looking approach. So from our perspective, you'd have heard a list of things that we've been pursuing, right? But I wanted to, first of all, pause to just, and I think we should applaud them very loudly. All of the entities that have come on board to ensure that young people have access to education. CSA has always provided scholarships, not just to the CMU, but to people pursuing. And I think we should give them a round of applause. I've witnessed the raising of funds on behalf of these scholarships, and there's a Monica Silver, there are others. There's the ACMF, there are others who do amazing things. Now,
Tropical shipping.
yes, I'm yes, tropical shipping as well. And I could go on and on, right? But I think the important thing is that there's an opportunity to demonstrate what has worked. So let me give you a very real example. You have the German ship repair Jamaica, right? It's a for-profit business. I don't know if Charlie Johnston is in the room, but this is a reality that we treat with. So there's the business side of it. But on the other hand, we partner with them for apprenticeships for disenfranchised young men in communities who otherwise would not have an opportunity to make it in life. And so I think that that's really what the university positioning allows. It gives an opportunity for people to not only transform their own fortunes, but the fortunes of their families and generations to come. And I think that that's one way in which that happens. If you look at, the truth is, CSR involves digital inclusion, digital equity, gender equity as well. And the CMU has been very deliberate. And it's not because we're the president of WEMAC, but we do have the president of WEMAC, and we've been insistent that students should become involved in that kind of activism. And so we now have a student chapter at the Caribbean Maritime University that is championing these kind of gender imperatives. And so how do we help? Well, let me turn it around and say that everybody in this room, apart from the association approaches, everybody in this room should be looking at opportunities for ensuring that someone, or a couple people, or 3 people, or more, have the opportunity to study. Commit a part of what you earn to developing the broader region and the capabilities of these very talented individuals. Mirla said it. It's not charity. It's a pipeline for development. It's an investment. And as I started when I talked about ESG, you will be sure to see the return on your investment. If not immediately and directly to your business, you will see a change in the fabric of the environment within which your business operates. And naturally what that will mean is that your business will thrive in that kind of environment. So I'm making the point that universities are here. We have no horse in the race except the student who is to do well. And that's why I say it can be outward looking and inward looking. So the outward looking is that while we have our 3,000 fee-paying students who have to keep the university running, we're still doing training for the 600 people at no cost to them, for the other 50 people at no cost to them, for the other 10 people in other communities at no cost to them, and that is only made possible through partnerships with government and private sector entities. We're very proud of what's happening, but it's happening in pockets. It's happening in fragments. We need to be able to create an ecosystem that is not only impactful, but sustainable. So the role of the university is simple. We take policy, we educate, we transform individuals, their thinking, and their ability to implement these lofty policies that we often talk about, which don't often hit the ground.
Excellent. So we have the onus of making a commitment to take care of our industry, and that's how we take care of our industry. Bringing young people in, training them, and ensuring that the future of maritime is safe.
Ready for this wave. Now, what am I saying to you? As we continue to operate within a context that is so important, this maritime space, and everywhere I go I say this, so maybe I should say it here. It would be remiss of me not to say it at the CSA. We are maritime states in the Caribbean. Can I get an amen in the crowd? If we are maritime states, then we ought to put our money where maritime education is concerned. And therefore, this notion, for example, in my own country, where 0.01% of the national budget goes to maritime education, is a joke. But governments don't have all they need to equip what they need to equip, and that's why we're having a conversation with the private sector. And I contend, as I close my first round of what I'm saying here today, that the best way for us to engage in any kind of CSR is to fund our young people. And I'm telling you that if you want to see a change in our social conscience and consciousness, if you want to see a change in our environmental conscience and consciousness, it has to be through education. Now, I'll give you one example. We do public education all the time, right? Jamaica had a campaign in the 70s that said, 2 is better than too many. And I see President William doing this. Well, that took a long time to catch on, and that really was just a fertility consciousness, right? We were saying when people were having too many children, we wanted them to slow down, and that message took a very long time to catch on. And when it did, it caught on too well. Now we're saying we have a crisis with our fertility rate being too low, and then it's going to take us another 30 years to publicly educate people, and it's not going to keep pace. So the way to do it is to target your efforts towards the young people that we have at our disposal. Change your mindset, change your consciousness about things social and environmental, and watch your reality in the space shift significantly. I could go further to talk about some of the work we've been doing with Sargassum research. So the Caribbean Maritime University just got a grant, Our Ocean project, which is enabling us in partnership with Ireland to be able to look at biodiverse uses of sargassum. Who do you think is driving this project? Yes, we have excellent professors, but it's our students, it's the young minds who have this kind of consciousness who are driving the outputs that are going to determine what you and I do with this particular thing that to many of us is an inconvenience and a nuisance, but which has the potential to be something of significant economic impact. So Lady Tamara, I could go on and on and on, but you get my point. The university plays a critical role in ensuring that there is a targeted kind of approach to improving our CSR throughout the Caribbean and beyond.